Do you want to live your dreams in this lifetime? I had the sad experience of going to a friend's funeral a couple of weeks ago. In his mid-50s, this man. And I know that he had dreams for things that he wanted to experience in this life. And, you know, that's not unusual. We all have people in our lives that we think go far too early. However, you are here today and you have dreams. I have dreams and I want to start living those dreams. I am. I have started living those dreams and I have more dreams to live. And so are your dreams just there on the shelf, almost teasing you that, yes, you'd like this, but you can't have it? Are your dreams meant to be lived, or are they just meant to be a carrot that you never seem to be able to reach? I can tell you from experience that the dreams of your heart are actually indicative of your purpose. So today I want to talk about your dreams, and I want to talk about 4 practices that you can engage in that will see you live your dreams. So firstly, I want to ask you the question that my mentor asked me 27 years after I first had this question put to me. And that question was, what do you really want? So when I talk about dreams, if you knew you only had a year to live, 6 months to live, a week to live, what is the thing that you really, truly want to experience more than anything? I remember saying that to my dad. He was diagnosed with a terminal illness. And I said to him, Dad, is there anything you truly want to experience now, between now and when you go? And that's a question it's good to ask ourselves, because we get so hooked into this, working and being busy and doing the do, keeping up with the routine. But you're here to live what's in you, to express what is in you. I had a husband who passed away at 32 and I was 22. And it hit me really hard that, you know what, this is a game of life that we are all involved in, but it's quite a serious thing in the sense that we get to have our shot at it and then it's done as we know it. So what is it that you want to experience? Because as every day passes, that's a day less that you have. So getting what you want, there's a science and an art to it. Those dreams of your heart are not meant to stay as dreams. They are meant to invite you to look at them and say, yeah, what lights me up about that? What would that look like? What would that feel like? What would my life be like? Why do I want that? Get curious about those dreams, not just shove them down and then distract yourself with all the busyness and all the things in this society that can take our attention, but let your dreams get the attention that they deserve, because that's what we're here for. So if you were to decide what you wanted, think about a dream of your heart, okay? It might be so fanciful. And then I want you to consider what it would be like if you decided, I'm going to do that. I'm going to have that. I'm going to be that. Now, the first thing that might come to your mind is, how are you going to do that? Or, I can't do that. Like, what makes me think I can do that? Take notice of those little voices in your head, because they are inhabitants that we are going to send off at some point. But just notice that they're there. I had a dream one day welling up within me, and it was with such force that all the voices in my head that might argue with it were drowned out. And it came from an event. I was widowed at 22. And on this day, my young daughter, I had 2 young daughters, one was 3 months and one was 2 years old. And we'd gone along for a few months after my husband had passed away. And on this day, my 3-year-old was just not having a bar of what I wanted her to do. Wasn't being helpful. I couldn't get her dressed. I couldn't get her to do anything in cooperation with me. Now, I had been holding down the anger of my situation. I knew it was there, but I was trying to dismiss it and just, yep, I'm doing well, everything's fine. And on this day, my little Amy, I said to her, come on, Amy, just help me here. She was being such a, not helpful, let's say. And when I said that to her, she dropped her arms and her legs, and she just lay there on the floor and locked her big brown eyes on mine, and she spat the words at me, I just want my daddy. And I could feel her anger. She wasn't happy either. And we'd been traveling along with me, just the walking dead. I was just going through the motions, totally empty. That's how it felt. Not conscious of these 2 other little lives who were looking for interaction. And in that moment, when she spat those words at me, it's like a wrecking ball came through the lounge room, picked me up, winded me, and I found myself running down the passage to the nursery at the end of the passage. And I lived in a little fibro home in the mid-north of South Australia in Port Augusta. I raced into that room and I slammed the door so hard, it's like that house shook. And I stood in the middle of the nursery with my hands on my hips. And I remember thinking, as I put my head back and got ready to yell, who is to blame for this shit show called my life? I was so angry. I was 22. I had 2 young children. I had nothing behind me. What was I going to do? And whose fault was this? That's what I was on the warpath about. And as I let the verbal vomit come out to the powers that be, it's like, this is not what I wanted for my life. And they were the words that were the last out of my mouth before I had to gasp for air. I was so angry, and it seemed like an impossible situation. What am I going to do now? But I wasn't even thinking, what am I going to do now? I was thinking, whose fault is this? This is not what I wanted. And in the silence that followed, as I got rid of the vomit, the verbal vomit, I heard the words, what do you want? It was almost like a reply. I said, this is not what I wanted. What do you want? And this was a serious moment. I had 2 young lives down the passageway waiting for me to show up. It was almost like Amy had said to me, if you're not going to show up, bring in someone who will. And I know Dad will. And so I couldn't bring him in to the room. And I wasn't going to walk back into the room as I'd left. And as I started to ask myself the question, what do I want? If this isn't what I want, what do I want? That was a new question to me. Maybe it's a new question to you. But whatever situation you find yourself in, maybe life's bubbling along and you're just doing fine. Maybe you're where I was, where it just seemed so impossible. How am I going to advance from here? Or maybe you have all the trappings of this life, but you still know there's an emptiness. It doesn't matter where this finds you. What I know to be true is asking yourself that question is going to stir the life in you. And we all have that. We've got a pulse. We've got a life that is looking to be expressed. And as I started to consider that question, what do I want? And I'll tell you, it was such an emotional moment. I started thinking, well, since you're asking, this is what I want. I want the best life for these 2 little ones and for me. I want a home that's beautiful and happy and safe. And the ideas were just flooding into my head. And as I was having those ideas come, I was walking back down the passage, head down, and I was so focused on, these ideas. And they were just ideas. And if you'd known me then, and you'd been able to hear, and you'd been walking alongside me back down the passage, you would have been saying, hey, Di, You didn't finish high school. You don't have anything behind you. You have no career. What are you going to do? Like, how are you going to do all the things that you're listing? But I wasn't thinking about the how. I was so consumed with the dreams of my heart in that moment. Probably was pretty funny for the girls back down in the lounge room. I got back down there in a very different state to what I'd left in. I ran out of there like a crazy woman. And then they would have heard the screams. The neighborhood probably heard the screams. But I got back down there and I was very focused, and something had shifted in me. Because one, I had asked the question, what do I want? And death was very real to me. I knew that life finishes like that, and there is no coming back to have another shot. So what do you want? What are the dreams that light you up? I was captured by my dream and my idea that I wanted to be better and do better and have better. And I went from there, and it's so funny to me that 27 years on, I was then confronted with that question again. And yes, I'd gotten off track. I had not followed through on the fullness of my dream. I'd done some of it, but I was still very much not living the fullness of who I was. I was helping lots of other people, making life good for lots of other people, but it's like, what do you want? What are you here to express? And so when I then met my mentor 27 years later, live, and he looked at in my eyes and he said to me, what do you really want? I'm like, oh, I've heard those words before, many years ago. And it impacted me the same way. It's like, yeah, I'm here to express the life in me, as are you. And so tonight I'm asking you, what is it that you want? Because there's an art to getting what you want, and there's a science to getting what you want. Now, the art of it is to decide, is to say, yeah, this is what I visualize for me. These are the ideas, these are the components, and I'm putting them together in a beautiful vision. That's the art side of it. Now, the science of it is the actual how. How is that going to happen? And there is a lawful universe we're all a part of. It operates by law, orderly fashion. And once we start to understand how that works, then we can become conscious creators, co-creators of the life that we love. Now, we've got to clean up our thinking if we're going to create the life that we love. And so some of the ideas that might be coming to you now as you even listen to this and think, yeah, fine, I've got dreams, but how is that going to happen? I want you to put those aside. You might even write them down and say, sure, I've acknowledged I'm having this thought and I'm just going to put it in a jar in the waiting room. I'll deal with that later. What I want you to really focus on is that dream, the desires of your heart, and get very clear on what they look like. Do the art side, because that's your part to play. That's us setting the vision, setting the goal. Receiving that is the lawful process. That's the science side of it. And you have a part to play. However, none of that will matter if you haven't set the vision. You must become aware of what it is that you desire to have, to be, to do, and let your mind run rampant. Have you ever been with young children, 5 years and under, 6 years and under? Their imaginations are just amazing. They can imagine something in a split second and have all the detail, and they're so excited by it. I want you to do that. Like I was that day. I was captured by the download of this is what I desire. This is what I want to express in my life. So I want you to decide what that is and write it down, because you might feel inspired now, and in a day or so, it might be the furthest thing from your mind and you can come back to it. In fact, I encourage you to go to it every day and clean up your thinking. Do you know, we have surface thinking like, oh, I've got to do the washing, got to pick up the kids from school, I've got to do this, do that. Our to-do list is a lot of surface thinking. But your deep thinking, your real thinking, that's the thinking that arouses dormant powers in you. You are so powerful by your thinking. And so if you will just allow that to happen, spend some time, invest some time thinking deeply about this dream, this vision, play with it in your mind, imagine what that could look like. That's where it starts. That's where I started 35, 36 years ago now. And my goodness me, that's your ticket, no matter where you stand right now. Where you stand does not define who you are. Your desires define who you are. Do not be mistaken. Your inner convictions. What are your desires? If you only had a short time to live, and we don't know how long we've got, but I can tell you one thing, you can trust your desires. And when you feel the urgency of it, start down the path. And the first step is to get clear on what that is, understanding that the nature of your desire is to help you grow and to step into the more. I said to someone today, often our discomfort in life, you might be discontent and you're feeling just meh. It's like you're actually still wearing an outfit that you wore when you were 7 and you've outgrown it. The life in you is about growth and expansion and expression. If you consistently try to stay the same, you're going to be uncomfortable because the life in you wants more expression with and through you. And so it's like trying to wear the dress of a 7-year-old when you're 17 now. It doesn't fit anymore and it feels uncomfortable. We've got to keep up with the expansion that's in us, the life in us. You're going to have new ideas and new dreams and you're going to want more. That's normal. That's the way you've been made. And so we suffer because we have such limited thinking. And I want you to just, like it on that day. I remember walking back down the passage with my head full of beautiful ideas. And I got back down to the passage and I remember looking and thinking, yep, cloth nappies piled up in every chair in my lounge room. Cloth nappies back then, ladies. And nothing had changed in my physical world. But in my mental world, everything had changed. I literally felt like I walked back down that passage as a different person with very, very different intentions. And it lit a fire in my belly that's never gone. So you are free now to become what you want. And if you have things in your mind saying, no, I'm not, because you don't know my situation. That's true, I don't know your situation. But what I do know is you have a life in you that is more powerful than any circumstance. That's the truth. However, we must be willing to entertain those ideas, those dreams, start imagining what that could look like. You will be so thrilled with what starts to shift in your life as you start to think down that path of what it is that you desire. And so let's go through just 4 practices that you can put in place right now, starting today. And like I said, they're practices. All the best athletes in the world, all the best musicians in the world practice every day. And if we are going to be the best us, we've got to practice every day to do that. So here they are, the 4 practices. The first one is self-discipline. Now, I don't know about you, but when I used to hear the word discipline, I'm like, ugh, I don't want to know about it. But discipline is actually the awareness that you have a choice. That's all. And so self-discipline is the awareness that I have a choice and I get to make a choice. Right now, right here, right now, you can make a choice that this is a load of garbage, not listening, and I'm not doing it. And that's you're free to do that. We're so free that we can live in a state of despair our whole life if we choose. Or we can start thinking about what it is that we desire. So self-discipline is your ability to choose, to make a decision. And I would encourage you to make a decision based on what you love. What would I love more of? That day, walking back down the passage, I had a head full of what I wanted, what I desired. What do you want? I'll tell you what I want. And I started from, I don't want this, which led me to think, well, this is what I do want. And I started entertaining that. So your first practice is self-discipline. And that, I want you to remember, that means I have a choice in every single moment. I can choose thinking that makes me feel good or thinking that makes me feel ordinary. That's where it starts. And you might think, well, that's so simple. Yes, it is. You just have to make a choice. The second practice is self-responsibility. I love the word responsibility. This is my ability to respond to my circumstances, respond to my nature, to the very essence of life in me. You know, I could have had those thoughts come, like, what do you want? And I could have just given that a mouthful of more vomit and just gone on in my hopelessness. But I chose to respond in a different way. I chose to entertain the thought that, oh, I get to choose what I want. Well, I'll tell you what I want. And I went down that path. Now, it didn't mean everything was, you know, lollipops and rainbows from then on in, but it did impact me and caused me to start thinking around what I wanted. And goodness, the path I then went on, I'll tell you about it as we go if you're into this channel. But our ability to respond, I have a responsibility, self-responsibility. I'm responsible for myself. I'm responsible for what I think, for what I choose. As I engage my self-discipline, my choice, I'm responsible for that, nobody else. I could blame my circumstances and say, because of this, I'm a widow living in Port Augusta, living on a single parent's pension. That was me 36 years ago. I could have said, poor me, and I did for the longest time. But on this day, I chose different. I'm done. I'm done with that pity party. No one was coming to my party. So I chose to think differently. And that was my ability to respond to my circumstance, to my desires, to my awareness of, I don't want this. That inner voice, it's yours. It's the inner voice, the voice of you, the true you. And when I heard the words, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? Then I answered it. The third practice is self-awareness. Now, this is interesting, this practice, because I want you to be aware of yourself. Like I was aware. I was blaming anything I could find for my condition, my circumstances. And I became aware of that. And I became aware I was so angry. And then I became aware that I had this question in my mind, what do I want? I want you to become aware of what's going on inside you. No doubt you're very aware of what's going on around you, your circumstance, your conditions, what you don't have, why you don't have it. But I want you to become super aware of what's going on inside you. And I want you to do that, observe it without judgment. This is the biggest part of this self-awareness. I don't want you to blame and shame yourself under any circumstances. I want you to observe what's going on inside you. Just observe it. You might write it down and say, I noticed that. No judgment, just there it is. I see it. Observe. The thing about it is you can be unconscious, like walk through this life asleep or awake. And as you start to observe what's going on in you, you are in a position to change what's going on around you. A few days before I'd had my eruption down in the nursery, I was in the laundry washing dirty nappies. And it was interesting because, of course, shitty nappies. And I was thinking to myself, gee, I'm angry. I can feel this volcano of pus in me that just wants to be expressed. I just wanted to express this anger. And I thought, if I let just a little piece of this out, I'm in deep shit, is what I thought. And I thought, interesting, up to my elbows here in ordinary cloth nappies. And it was only a few days later. So that awareness of, I'm really angry and it's looking to come out and I've got to keep this tucked away. It wasn't long after that actually that event happened and caused the eruption. So this self-awareness is really important. Stop going unconscious. Stop using, chocolate was my drug of choice. And I would just do whatever I could to pacify myself and keep it all tucked down and just not being conscious of it. The fourth practice is self-remembrance, and this is a big one. When I say self-remembrance, I mean remember who you really are, and you might not even know who you really are. I certainly didn't then, but I do now. And I observed it back then. Like, this life in me was not going to be shoved down anymore. And I've had other incidents since then, which I'll tell you about later, that caused me to recognize that this life in me and in you is so powerful. And you might be doing your very best to just shove it down and concrete over the top of it with many, many things. But it will never give up being asked or prompting you to allow its expression. You are a beautiful soul, a beautiful individualized expression of life. That's the very essence of who you are. And yes, you're housed in a physical body. That's your instrument, if you like. And the life in you comes from the source of life. It's like the sun. The sun has many sun rays. I love it when you see the sun rays streaming through the trees. Each of those rays of sun are sunlight because they come from the sun. They're not orange juice or, I don't know, they're not anything else but beautiful sunlight from the sun. The life in you is nothing more than life coming from the source of life. And it's powerful, it's expressive, it's creative, it's expansive, and it's in you to be individually expressed. You are an individualized expression of it. And we're here to allow that. And so the more aware you become of who you are, the more you will understand that the easy road in life is to surrender to the life in you, to be who you are, to show up authentically, to get rid of the masks, get rid of the facades, stop trying to fit in and just allow yourself to be yourself. And like I said, that self-awareness, start to love yourself. Do not judge yourself for what you've been or what you've done or what's happened or what you didn't do. Leave all that. Just leave it. It's like, what now? You're where you're at. I want you to recognize that you are an expression of life and love you. I hesitate on that because I found that so hard. And maybe you're there. You're like, I can't love me. Well, let's work on that. But I'm going to suggest it to you now. Because one day it was suggested to me, and I felt actually quite nauseous when it was suggested to me that I wake up in the morning and kiss myself and love myself. And I thought, I can't do that. And that was 9 years ago. Well, now I don't have a problem loving me because I didn't create me. I just am me. I'm an expression of life looking to be expressed, as are you. So in that self-remembrance, I want you to put down what is no longer serving you. If something is not serving you, it's not for you. So don't keep packing it up and making it fit and giving it a place. Just put it down. It's not yours. It's not serving you. Things like victim talk. victim talk, poor me talk. That's not actually who you are. That's some facade that you've been wearing, but you are a powerful creator. The life in you is so much stronger and more powerful than the circumstance you find yourself in. And so put down the victim talk, put down the victim consciousness. Do not think thoughts like that. When you have a thought that is, poor me, think, hang on a second. That's a belief I'm carrying. I'm not poor. I'm powerful. I'm powerful by the thoughts I think. So if I'm going to think thoughts of victimhood, I will be a powerful victim. I'm going to stay in that. But if I want to put those thoughts down and think, actually, I'm a powerful co-creator, I'm going to start thinking in line with the desires of my heart. Things are going to start to shift, because this is universal law we're talking about, not just my ideas or my opinions or even just my experiences. This is the law. We become what we think about, and we attract based on who we are, as in the vibe we're in, the way we feel, the state we're living in. So I want you to put down that's what's not serving you, and I want you to pick up the doneness talk, Like when I was walking back down that passage, I'm like, I was speaking with such conviction in my mind. This is done. This is done. These girls are going to have the best life, and I'm going to give it everything I've got. And I didn't even know what I had back then to give. But I was convinced this is what I've decided. And that's what I want for you today, to pick up the doneness talk, to make that decision. Be conscious of what you want and believe that it's for you. You can do that, and you may have to borrow my belief, but if you've got a desire in your heart, I'm telling you, you would not have that desire if you didn't have the power available to you to be, do, or have that thing. Now, you might not see the resources you need. That's okay. They'll arrive in time. You can know that. You don't have to worry about that. What you want to be focused on is, what is it that I'm here to express? And remain in line with what lights up your heart. And so I guess a good way to start would be to ask yourself, what do I feel drawn to? Like that day when I had the question, what do I want? What do I want? What do I want? It very quickly came to me. Right here is what I want. I want the best life for those girls. Now, I didn't have a 5-year plan drawn up. I didn't have all the to-do list. I just knew the outcome. What's really important to you? What's really important to you? I've done some things in my life that, okay, to the outside world, they might not look terrifically successful. But if I had my time again, I'd do exactly the same, because the outcome was an outcome that was really important to me. So I'm a success because I followed through on my ideal, the thing that I really loved. I wanted the outcome. And so I walked that path. So I want you to start thinking, what do you feel drawn to? What's very important to you? What do you truly want with your heart and soul? If you could have anything, be anything, do anything, and you knew that all the resources you needed would come, what would you choose? Give all your mental energy to that. Give yourself space each day to engage in that thinking. And I look forward to chatting with you again. But get started on that, because we are not here to regurgitate what has been. We're not here to keep the status quo. We are here, each of us, to bring forth more life, more expression, more expansion of all the good. The life in you is only well-being. Life, by its very definition, cannot be anything else. It's all good. And so what's your part in that expression? Thanks for joining me. And I look forward to chatting with you very soon.